All right. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another No Idea podcast. This is episode number what?
I don't know, 3?
5. Nice.
I missed
Nice
a
job.
couple there.
This is number 5.
Forgot to carry the
God, dude. Wow. This is episode number 5 featuring Lucas Barth. We'll introduce him in a minute here. But if you haven't already, we'd love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you do that. Hit that little bell thing to make sure that you stay in the loop when we release some new content, because the shit that we're releasing is good stuff, so you don't want to miss it. And then the other thing is, make sure you listen to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe there, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, all that good stuff.
Also check out our website.
Yep, website.
noidea.tv for any updated merch or other things. Yeah.
Merch.
We're real, Luke. We're for real.
Hold on. Speaking of merch, do you ever see the color of our first hat that we got? That Luke's son.
Oh yeah.
One?
Yeah.
You see the color of it right now?
Oh, it's so gross.
It looks like the most disgusting hat ever.
Not a free advertisement.
Yeah. So we are so glad that you are watching or tuning in. But here what's new? What's
nothing.
new with us right now?
I got the boat in for the first time
Yeah,
on the
right.
water, so that was great. And Luke, how did your trip up to Canada go?
Yeah, Luke, Canada.
The fishing was great, but my boat broke. So I have a really expensive anchor in my garage.
Is it? Oh.
Day 1, my boat worked. Day 2, the water pump went out, so my boat didn't work. So it floats, it just doesn't go.
So that's about all it does.
Pretty much.
So what did you do? How did you salvage your trip?
I had to rent another boat. So
What
I rented a 16.5 foot with a 50 horsepower tiller motor on it, a little tin can.
Ooh.
Still caught some fish, but I had to back troll, no trolling motor, and no depth finder.
What does back troll mean?
You put it in reverse.
And you go backwards?
You go back.
Okay.
Back troll.
It's a little easier to control the boat when you're captaining the boat with a tiller motor.
You got to understand, Aaron and I fish from a pontoon. We pull up to the same spot every year with mom and dad and put out an anchor, and we fish the same spot every single year. There's no trolling.
But Dad did get a trolling motor.
He did.
He bought a trolling motor from a friend.
I called Mom. They were out on the pontoon today, and I called Mom, and they just got on the water, and Dad couldn't figure out. They thought the propeller was just going around because of the wind. Well, no, it was on.
It was on.
It was just on. That is a Sturgis thing. That's a Sturgis thing to do. So, Aaron, what do we got?
Okay,
we got first here.
So we have a no idea news. We got to figure out what to name this. So if you're watching or listening, comment. Let us know what we should name this segment. This is basically a segment of dipshits, but we also talk about things that can affect anglers and hunting and fishing and so forth that are happening, whether it's in Washington or at the state level. So here we go. Let's start with the first one. This one's a serious one. I mean, they're both serious. So there's a congressman who is he just introduced a bill. His name is Andrew Clyde from Georgia. And I was told that when you read what he says, you're supposed to kind of picture the guy from what was that? Daisy Duke, Dukes of Hazzard, the guy that wears a white suit in Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, isn't it the sheriff?
Yeah, the sheriff.
The sheriff.
You're supposed to picture this guy because this is how he talks and this is kind of his attitude. It's the funniest thing ever. But anyways, Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde and 53 co-sponsors introduced a bill last week the bill is called Return Our Constitutional Rights. And what this would do is it would eliminate the federal excise tax on firearms and ammunition. Now, Return stands for Repealing Excise Tax on Unalienable Rights Now, he says. So just to give you a background really quick, this is to repeal Pittman Robertson which was basically established in 1937. And the whole point of this, now remember, this act in 1937 was bipartisan. That's Democrats, Republicans.
That's good.
Yep. And the sole purpose was it generates hundreds of millions of dollars every year to fund the conservation and land access efforts of state wildlife agencies. Representative Clyde said he wants to repeal this funding because the tax, guess what, infringes on what?
The Second
Amendment. He says this, in case my Democrat colleagues forgot, the Bill of Rights enumerates rights to which the government cannot infringe. Unquestionably, infringement exists when the government taxes those rights to limit the people's ability. Then he goes on to say, this is the common phrase on this side. As assaults against American Second Amendment freedoms continue to emerge, so do treacherous threats that seek to weaponize taxation in order to price this constitutional right out of each of the average Americans. So I think he's saying that one of the ways that they're, conspiring to take our guns away is to tax the shit out of us. And if they tax it so much, then guess what? We won't be able to afford our guns. And that's how they get ya, he says. So here's the thing. You guys got any comments yet so far? You need some more?
Nope. I need some more White Claw. Comments.
So obviously, the conservationists see the federal excise tax on firearms and ammunition as it's a freaking good thing.
Because it's money.
Yep.
Money coming in. It's revenue for them.
Yep, absolutely. It's perfect.
So do you know how much, does it say anything about how much if they do away with this, how is it, are we talking hundreds of thousands? Are we talking millions of dollars? Are we talking billions of dollars that they would lose? Obviously there's money to gain, but there's obviously money to lose.
So
here.
the press release neglects to mention that the maximum amount that can be transferred. Okay, so he's saying we're going to cut this out, and in order to replace this, right, this revenue, we'll take it from the oil and gas revenues. But there's only a maximum amount that can be transferred from oil and gas revenues, and that's $800 million, which is a nice chunk of change. But here we go. Ready to answer your question? The Pittman-Robertson alone generated over $1 billion in 2020 and $1 billion in 2020.
That was a good question.
That was a damn good question. It was a good.
Normally
yeah.
I don't ask good ones. Normally I get made fun of.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but here's the other thing. Something to think about. And for all you listeners, if you're watching, listening, it's also worth noting that according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, gun sales, we'll talk about this in a minute because you sold a lot of guns. Gun sales are at an unprecedented level right now. Firearm production right now is at an unprecedented level. In fact, you couldn't, for the longest time, it's still hard to get your hands on them. So, and all of this has risen substantially since the 1990s. So if the Pittman-Robertson if this tax was actually hurting the gun industry, wouldn't the opposite be happening?
But aren't they fearful of it increasing, the tax increasing? Isn't that why they're doing it?
Possibly.
Because if the tax is where it's currently at, then yeah, but it sounds like they're using it as a counter for a potential increase in the taxes.
Yeah.
So, no, I would say to that question. That wouldn't make sense to me.
Right.
I understand what the comment would be, but I would say if the tax increased by, what did they say, 1,000%? If the tax increased by 1,000%, and then a year later, let's check the gun sales and then see if it affected it. Well, if you eliminate the tax, let's see what the gun sales do, and then we'll evaluate it. I don't think it would move the needle on that either way.
Right. But
taxing it or not taxing it, I don't think it's going to move the needle.
Right. The Pittman-Robertson one, it's not. That's a set sales tax on firearms.
Correct, but at the beginning, didn't you say somebody wanted to increase that tax?
there was
1,000%.
There was a Democrat out in I forget his whereabout, out in Virginia actually, which he recently introduced a bill that would impose 1,000% tax on semi-automatic weapons.
Okay. So is this Boss Hogg guy? He's a county commissioner. He wasn't the sheriff. He's the county commissioner.
County commissioner.
So the Boss Hogg guy is his proposition in kind of as a result of the Virginia guy's proposal.
Who knows? Who knows? Or is it an extreme? Because, right now it's the extreme. But, okay, here's one other thing to think about, okay? Here's one other thing to think about. This Clyde guy, Boss Hogg, guess what he owns in Georgia?
Weapons factory.
Yes,
Ammunition factory.
Absolutely. So, saying that, I'm sure he's motivated. I mean, they all work for the best interests of their constituents. They would never want to better so there might be some selfless desires to protect the Second Amendment, but I'm sure he stands to gain something from this. No? Possibly?
I don't know. That's for the gun sales that we know about. That's
Right.
not for the gun sale at, Cornell High School, where it's just who knows what guns are being sold and bought there. So this is just for the gun sales that we know about. So I don't know.
Right. Something to keep watch over.
That will be. That was just introduced yesterday.
Yep, yesterday. So
Okay.
it doesn't sound like it'll get anywhere at all. All right, here's a good one. This one's an awesome one. We'll share. We'll put the link to this one in the show notes down below. But Pennsylvania man, methed up poacher shoots friend while coyote hunting.
Jesus.
He has been charged with aggravated assault, reckless endangerment after he allegedly shot his friend in the neck during a meth-fueled coyote hunt. So, Michael, he's 47, and his best friend, this is the funny thing, they've been best friends for over 20 years. They both stood up. They're both each other's best man in their wedding. After this incident, they haven't really talked at all. And his best friend Joseph both admitted to taking methamphetamine prior to the incident on January 14th. Lynn testified at a hearing on Wednesday that he had been taking meth for at least 3 days as a stimulant so they could stay up at night to hunt coyotes.
Wow.
That's a new one.
Better ways.
So,
Like coffee
yeah.
or anything.
So this guy says he used a call to track coyotes, and after about a half an hour, a pair saw 3 sets of eyes glowing in the shine of their headlights. The men took turns shooting at the animals with their .223 Remingtons, and after the second shot, Lynn said he thought he saw a white belly of an animal on the ground. So he got up to go investigate it, but couldn't locate the animal. On his way back, he saw his friend shake his light at him, which he thought meant more coyotes were in the area. So Lynn looked behind him, probably looked over his shoulder, but when he turned back, he saw a muzzle flash. He said, I could see the silhouette, then all of a sudden I could see his muzzle flash. Lynn was shot in the neck. He said his right arm is almost paralyzed. He still has bullet fragments in his back that are too close to the spine to remove, and those fragments cause him constant pain. And then here it is. They haven't spoken since the incident, according to Joe's lawyer. The 2 men have been best friends for 20 years. Here's the best part. Walnut claims that he shot Lynn accidentally, but Lynn doesn't buy it. How do you shoot someone with a red light on his head wearing an orange coat? He asked during the hearing. Here you go. Ready? He claims that after Walnut shot him, Walnut took the meth in Lynn's wallet along with $100 before calling 911. Should we be laughing?
You can't fix stupid.
Oh my God. And then the best part is, officers later found, because remember, they were basically blasting at 3 sets of eyes. They never said they were coyotes. They just said they saw 3 sets of eyes. Officers later found a white-tailed deer that had been badly wounded near the site of the incident, and they recovered a bullet that matched the type of projectile that Lynn was firing. Damn.
I wonder if these two guys are still married even.
Yep. God, that's just 223 to the neck.
It wouldn't feel too good.
No. Well,
I got nothing.
you got nothing. The fact that they were hopped up on meth so they could stay awake to hunt coyotes.
Yeah, just don't do that.
And then, don't do meth. So, okay, if you're listening, to my right is my brother Adam. We never really introduced each other. That's Adam.
Yeah, I'm Adam. That's Aaron over there on the left.
That's Aaron on the left. This is if you're listening. And in the middle, right here.
The rose between two thorns.
Yep.
Wow.
The man, the myth, and the legend. Luke Barth. Luke, how you doing?
I'm doing
How's
great.
life? Doing
Hello,
great?
everybody.
Hello. Good to see you.
Yeah, you as well.
Man,
Thanks for having me.
are you getting the itch to hunt yet?
I always have the itch to hunt. It's more of a barrier in my life than anything.
Do you have cameras out yet?
I have 5 cameras out.
What kind?
Spy point.
Yes.
The cell cams, the microlinks or whatever? The microlinks.
Okay.
There you go.
Is that all? That's the only one you got?
Yes,
You got 5 of them.
correct.
Nice.
And get some deer here and there. Get a couple bear, a couple things,
Raccoons?
a couple fox.
Bear. You said bear, right?
Bear.
With
Anything-
any cubs this spring? We had a big sow with her cub on there. That was big.
It was huge.
We also had a wolf with a collar on.
Yes. We did.
That was fun.
Yep.
We haven't seen any wolves like up in a camera other
Wolves.
than that one.
Wolves.
Wolves is there's a lot of fox and coyote though.
Yeah, we have a lot of wolf up by us. We're up in northern Minnesota.
Up in northern Minnesota.
Any big ones? Are there gonna be any that will make the do not shoot list or the shoot list?
If we drew a tag, we would have an opportunity, yes.
No, for deer.
I was wondering
Yeah.
that too. I was thinking wolves are. We're setting them up here.
Yeah, I know. We did have.
We
a
did
DNR.
just have a DNR agent on last show, so I mean,
If it was legal to hunt and we drew a tag, we would hunt a wolf.
you would
But
be done in 12 hours.
pretty much. Yeah, there's a lot of wolf up there. But no, where we hunt, you shoot anything you can, as far as white-tailed deer.
Cool. So Elk River, Minnesota, born and raised.
Born and raised.
And then you meet Aaron in college. You're same age? You guys the same age? Aaron's 5 years older than me. So
Are you
guys,
44 yet?
I am.
You're 43.
I'm 43.
So
I'm 43. Yes, I'm
Graduated
43.
Elk River, went to Wisconsin, Eau Claire, met Aaron. Actually, you kind of just evolved. One day you were there.
I know. I remember first time meeting you with Nate,
Yep.
and I was just randomly in your apartment, and that's just kind of how it went.
You never left.
No, I didn't.
It's just kind of
Kind of was there.
Yeah.
And then you
'Cause I had
kind of
no
just
friends.
showed up as a neighbor one day
Well, yeah.
during swine flu.
Yeah, I do remember that. So let's rewind a little bit. We know you as a great outdoorsman. I say that very loosely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but seriously though, we know you as an outdoorsman from hunting and fishing and everything outdoors. So tell us a little bit about getting into hunting. We know your family a little bit, but tell us a little bit about how'd you get into hunting and all of that.
Yeah. So grew up in a family where everything we did from summer vacations were camping in northern Minnesota, catching sunfish. And then it was a family kind of event to have deer hunting at my mom and dad's house. So we've been, in a home that always valued the hunting, the outdoors, the conservation, everything that goes along with anything outdoors. But as far as hunting and fishing are concerned, I've been doing it forever and ever and ever. In Minnesota, we could legally hunt at age 12. So the first time carrying a legal firearm in a deer stand was 12.
What kind of gun was it?
Yeah, what was your first one?
It was a 20 gauge Mossberg shotgun, fixed choke. The plug was rusted in it, so you could only put 3 shells in it. I saw some deer.
Do you still have that gun?
We do, yes.
So there's 4 of you.
Correct.
Did each one of you have to use that one when you first hunted, or did each of you get your own?
So my older brother and myself love the outdoors much more than my younger two. So we use the Mossberg 20 gauge. But then by the time my 2 younger brothers got through, we had some more shotguns in the home.
Nice.
So
Do you remember your first kill?
yeah.
I don't want to say legal because that insinuates that you shot something not legal, but your first kill with that.
Yes. Did not get it with a 20 gauge Mossberg. So in what would that have been? 78, 88, 1990-ish. Hunted with the Mossberg. Then we bought some land in northern Minnesota, and I hunted with a 30-06 Remington 742. And if you know what that gun is, it's a semi-automatic rifle that had some significant problems with the bullets ejecting. But that was my first gun I got to rifle hunt with. And it was, I think, the opening Sunday, the weekend, Sunday morning, I had a little spike buck come and got the opportunity to shoot. Shot it at about 40 yards, which felt like it was 400. And, yeah, the antlers are still on the wall.
That's amazing.
That's so cool. That's so cool. But you've always been an avid outdoor enthusiast. Like you and Renee, you guys took off up to Alaska for a while.
Yep. Yeah, we packed 2 bags, got on an airplane, and got off the airplane in Anchorage, Alaska, and kind of looked around and said, well, now what do we do?
Yeah.
Didn't know a soul, didn't have any money, rented an apartment, rented a car, or got a car. 2 years later, came home. But in that 2 years, we spent endless days hiking in the mountains, fishing salmon, fishing halibut.
You didn't hunt, though. Did you
We
ever?
hunted one weekend, but just the 2 of us, we couldn't, out of good faith and good practice, take care of a moose or take care of a caribou or bear. So we chose not to, just because we couldn't deal with all the meat, just the 2 of us. But we did fish a lot. It's hard now as I get older to think that I was tired of eating salmon and halibut because you could only have lemon pepper halibut.
Yes.
Cajun salmon, garlic, garlic fish or whatever. So yeah, we miss it, but it was a great part of our life. My wife also really enjoys the outdoors, and we've really, now with our kids, they love it too.
Yeah, kids. You got 3.
3 boys.
So how many, and each, 2 of them hunt?
Right now, currently, yes. My youngest will be hunting next year.
Okay. Bow?
Nope, he'll start with a rifle.
Rifle. Okay. So how many guns will Renee watch us?
No, but that's a question you can't ever ask anybody.
No, never mind.
Aaron always asks the dumbest question.
I do.
When we were out in Wyoming 3 weeks ago, we're staying on a cattle ranch, and Aaron asked the ranchers, how many head of cattle you got out there? And he looks at him and goes, have I ever asked you how many times you have sex in a night? Aaron's like, no, why? He goes, yeah, because it's rude. Don't ever ask that again.
Don't ask.
It's like, okay.
I didn't know. You know.
Guns are the same thing, though. I knew that.
But we do have to get into, I hope we talk about too, you have to have firearms for different types of animals.
Yes.
So we can talk about that.
Yes. Okay. So it's safe to say you at least have 1.
Correct.
Okay.
I have 1.
That's good.
So obviously, it sounds like it was a family thing, growing up, hunting, fishing, all that kind of stuff. So would you say is there like a single most influential person, or was it just more of a whole family type of a
Great
thing?
question. Hands down, my dad. Growing up, my dad really was not in a family of hunters and fisher people. So he didn't get into hunting and fishing until an older age. So he started to have kids. He had 4 boys, and then he started to get into it, and that really, his love of it really grew, and it really now has become part of us as a Barth family. So
cool.
So that led you to college,
Yep.
and we talked about Alaska.
Yep.
But you had a job too, though, and this is why I'm going to kind of segue into our discussion today. So you had a job at a sports store here in town.
Yep.
And what did your job entail?
I had the opportunity to sell firearms every day for years and years.
How many years did you do that? Do you remember?
Total, probably 7.
Wow.
Yeah. At one point, I even quit college for a year, worked full time,
Just sell
selling
fire.
guns. Yep.
Dang. That's it.
Loved every minute of it.
Would you say that's where you really your just passion for rifles and guns just really took off?
Yeah. And really the knowledge when we worked there, you had to know something about everything. So we really dove into different types of firearms, different types of calibers, different types of ways to hunt, ways to fish and whatnot. It kind of became us. We loved it, obviously in our family, but then if I was going to sit across the counter and talk to somebody about a 30-06, I needed to know something about it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a great part of my life. I could see as I get older, once I retire, getting back into something like
it.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Plus, you met probably such a cool group of people.
Yeah. Well, and every day you got to see pictures of deer and elk and moose and bear, and you hang out with like-minded thinkers.
Has the sport, whether you however you want to refer to it, hunting, but has rifles? Have you seen a huge evolution in the rifle industry since you were working there? Because you're talking early 2000,
right?
2000, 2001. Have you seen a big evolution in rifles right now?
For the hunting firearm, like a bolt-action firearm, not a lot has changed.
Okay.
There has been obviously more with the like a 223, a sporting type rifle. Those have changed a little bit. They're much more available than they were. But as far as the foundation of like a Remington 700 BDL, which is a style of a firearm, a bolt action, that model really hasn't changed a whole lot.
But there was still, 20 years ago, there's still synthetic stainless steel.
Yep. Yep.
You
And
think of Tikas and
Tika was not really around when I was there.
yeah.
So it was the Sacco brand, which is in essence the higher end Tika. But yeah, so things like that have changed a little bit, but the foundation of an action, they have not changed a whole lot.
What was, when you were working there, what was the most sought after rifle of that time? Like right now it seems, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but right now it sounds like the 6.5 Creedmoor is the one that everybody loves.
I'll hold my lip for a little bit.
Yep. Which I will say I have one because I won it.
You won it.
I won it. I didn't go seek a 6.5 Creedmoor. But what was the most sought after rifle?
I would say we sold, for a bolt action rifle, it was a Remington 700.
Okay.
Which is a bolt action, any caliber. Typically a 30-06 would have been the most popular. And then a Browning A-bolt would probably be up there as well. Semi-automatic would have been the Remington 7400. Way back it was a 742, but they had some issues with it. So yeah, they're still around today. The 700, Remington's not really right now making the 700, but I anticipate that coming back.
Remington go out of business?
I don't know if it really went out of business, but they had some lawsuits that they had to settle.
And that had something to do with how, like, what was it?
I know, so my Remington 700 had a faulty trigger that had to get replaced. So that could have been part of it.
That was my 7mm had that too. But our trigger had already been replaced before that even.
But I don't know specifically what happened.
I don't know either. I keep getting the mailings, the class action, whatever, and
Yeah. What was the weirdest rifle you sold? Do you know?
Ooh.
Do you remember?
Weirdest rifle. Well, I sold it was a Reuger bolt action in a caliber of .416 Rigby.
Okay.
which is huge. I actually had an opportunity to shoot it, sold it to a friend, and it was, if you would quote unquote, like an elephant gun.
Yeah.
It is huge, and it is not very fun to shoot at all.
Okay.
Very, very expensive, very, very big round, very intimidating to shoot it as well. But a 416 Rigby was probably the
Wow,
weirdest.
416.
Yeah,
What would you? Is that
What
like
caliber was it?
416 Rigby.
That's
Yes,
usually the
I
number
guys get
before
confused with
everything.
the model numbers and the.
Yeah.
So
That's why you're here.
416. That's a step up from a 410, right?
It is a humongous gun.
Yeah.
Huge.
So you're taking that on a safari.
Yeah. You're not shooting probably a white-tailed deer around Wisconsin.
All right, so Adam just touched on it. This perfect segue because I don't know shit about this stuff. When you get into like the calibers
Yep.
or cartridges, somebody corrected me the other day and they're like, technically it's not a caliber. You're talking cartridges. I'm like, whatever. So what makes a caliber? Like, I mean, I can set my son's 243. My dad's 30-30, my 270, and then Adam's 7M. I can set those up. You can say, yeah, I can see the difference. They're bigger. This one, the casing is taller and whatnot. But what sets a caliber? What makes a 243 hey, that's a 243?
So it would be the size of the bullet that gets shot out, the projectile that gets shot.
'Kay.
So a 30-06, a 300 Winchester, a 308, all have a 30 caliber bullet. So it's the same size bullet that's being shot out of your firearm.
Say that again one more time. A
So 308,
308.
30-06, 300 Winchester Magnum,
Yep.
30-30, all have a .30 caliber bullet.
Gotcha.
That's a 30 caliber bullet. So a
Yeah.
270 would have a smaller bullet projectile that you're shooting, but the casing that the bullet sits in is basically the same as a 30-06, just what they call neck down to a 270 bullet. So
'Kay.
it's a lot of basically the size of the bullet that you're shooting.
Okay.
Basically.
Size, not so much like length as it is weight, right?
Well,
Or no?
so the weight then comes into, take a 30-06 because it's a standard bullet that most people know, and I am a huge 30 caliber fan.
No.
Thought I'd just
we'll
plug
talk.
that.
We'll talk
We'll
about that
talk
in a
that
minute.
little bit.
Yeah.
But the 30-06 or the 30 caliber bullet that you're shooting out has different weights. It can get up to like a 220 grain, maybe 240, down to like a 140, 150 grain bullet. So you have a lot of range of depending on what kind of animal you're shooting. So if you were going to shoot, say, a white-tailed deer, a 180 grain 30-06 bullet would be a pretty standard shell that you would see around here. If you're going to shoot a big black bear, might be a 220 grain 30-06. Just a little heavier bullet projectile that you're shooting out.
So the caliber is you said size, but we really mean diameter, correct? The diameter
Yeah.
than anything.
Yeah, so like a .30
Yeah.
is a 30 caliber bullet.
Yeah. But then the cartridge again is taking the powder, everything
Yes.
into consideration for that, the length of it, the case and everything.
Right.
And higher the grain, the bigger the punch. Proverbial punch.
Proverbial, yeah.
The ballistic
Yeah.
punch of it,
Yeah.
correct? What do they call that? The knockdown?
Yeah,
Is
knockdown.
that what they call it? Knockdown power?
Jeez.
Well, that's a first.
Careful now.
Wow.
Watch your computer.
We got abuse going on.
Yeah, and you can really get in, depending on how technical you want to get, you can get into velocity and drop and all those kind of things, and it gets pretty technical.
So what the difference between where is what, and this is what always confuses me, is you get into the millimeters and then you get into the why did that happen? Why do we have all these different measurements of this stuff?
No clue. Probably gives us something to sit around on a podcast and talk about.
Yeah.
But really, the average shooter around, say, Wisconsin, you're shooting less than 100 yards.
Yep.
So whether it's a 243 or a 416 Rigby, as long as you have shot placement, you're fine. So people do talk a lot about, well, what's the best elk caliber, right? You hear 270 is a great flat shooting elk caliber. If you make a good shot, you're going to kill an elk with a 243, 30-06, 270, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because what I always get confused with those numbers, though, is like, you know, like a 7mm. We've had this conversation a million times around campfires. You call it a necked down version of a 300.
Yep.
But so why not? So why is a 7mm not a 30 caliber? Is the diameter is not quite
Correct. The bullet is smaller.
okay?
So you have a Magnum caliber, like the powder
Yeah.
is a Magnum, which means you're going to shoot it faster and flatter because it's a lighter, faster bullet.
Okay, sounds like it's better than a 300 to me. I'm just one of those. Okay,
They're all good.
so let's real quick. You have your caliber or cartridge. You have your cartridge, the actual gun itself, be it the brand, model, all that kind of stuff, or your glass. To make a good, ethical, clean kill, which one to use the most important?
I would spend the most amount of money on my optics.
Ooh, isn't that, yeah. What did they say? If the cost of your rifle is this, your optic should be like,
We
X amount
always
more.
tried to get people into, when I was more involved in selling firearms, you first have to feel comfortable shooting it. If you have too big of a firearm, especially for kids, if you have too big of a gun that they're going to shoot it, they're not going to enjoy shooting it, and then they're going to flinch. Or just get out of hunting because it's not fun. No one wants to get beat up when they're shooting. So comfortable with the gun, but I would say the most important would be your optics.
optics.
Okay, so in transition, you were just talking about it's intimidating for new hunters. So let's talk to the new hunters right now. Again, we'll get into your favorite caliber here
Yep.
soon. But when you're talking new hunters, you kind of started to touch on it about that intimidation, about everything from kids, but also up to new hunters with adults. You know, we've had some very close friends that recently get into this. They're in their mid-30s and they're just getting into hunting. So as if you're talking to a new hunter, no matter the age, maybe an adult new hunter, what would you recommend in regards to picking a caliber
Right.
and
So,
cartridge?
so I walk in to your store
Yep.
and right from the get-go, I want to buy a hunting rifle.
Yep.
You would say,
So again, and I know we'll talk about it more later, I'm a huge 30 caliber bullet fan. And the reason is it can go down to, say, a 308 caliber, which is a smaller casing. So it's going to have, in theory, less recoil. It's going to have a size bullet, a 30 caliber bullet, which has a range where you go a little bit lighter, a little bit heavier. But then you can also get low recoil bullets. So you can get a young person or a new hunter behind that firearm with a low recoil bullet and have lots of flexibility where it's not going to be as intimidating as a 300 Winchester Magnum or a 7mm Magnum or whatnot. So I would say a 308 because you can start them with low recoil bullets and then transition them into shooting an elk.
but let's back up. Wouldn't the first thing you'd ask me, though, would be, well, what are you going to hunt for? Right? And so I guess for conversation's sake, we could say, this is strictly because we live in the Midwest. We're looking at, I want a rifle that will help me harvest whitetail deer.
Yep.
And basically, as long as it's bigger than a 22, pretty much any caliber
right.
caliber will do. So 308, you're saying is probably like this would be my go-to.
That would be my go-to.
Starting point.
Correct. Yep. And there are lots of people that would jump into a 243. Again, recoil-wise, 243 would be less. It doesn't have the whole flexibility of a 30 caliber bullet, though. You couldn't get it as heavy.
And that's the one thing I've told you this, and I know we've disagreed on it, but the 243 youth model kicks like a freaking mule.
Yeah.
It is not fun to shoot because they're so loud.
Yeah.
They kick because they're so light. They're so small, and that's a big cartridge for a little gun.
So any youth model firearm is smaller frame on every angle. I would personally not recommend a youth model because of that right there.
And they all come, from what I understand, is most come with the 2-point safeties now. That was the biggest thing when Dad bought us. Dad bought us our 243s, and it was always because the youth models then were the only ones with a 2-point safety. So you had to go click to get it to, and you could unload on that second safety.
Yeah, you didn't need
Whereas it's my understanding that now rifles, pretty much most of them, all have a 2-point,
Safety.
and you can unload on safety.
Yep, and with rifles too, I would not recommend the trusty turdy lever action.
Yeah,
which is, that firearm has been around forever and ever and ever. It killed maybe, I don't know if it's 30-06 is taken over now, the most amount of animals in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But a lever action is just hard for a new hunter.
Yeah.
So my go-to would be the ability to have a lower recoil bullet in a full-size firearm. So,
Are you talking just for kids?
for newer younger
hunters.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess newer hunters. It might even be a shock when you get behind a gun and
Right.
shit.
And what you don't want to do is get scared of shooting it, because if you're scared of shooting it, you're not going to enjoy it, and you're not going to want to do it.
So 308.
That would be my go-to.
That's your go-to.
Do you remember I forget what Ace Hardware store Dad and Uncle George found.
Wasn't it Baldwin?
I think it was
That was
Baldwin.
Baldwin's. I had some big gun shop.
Yeah.
in Baldwin, like
It was
a
an
hardware
Ace
store.
hardware store, and they were on sale, and it was the exact one that Dad was looking for. Or probably Uncle George said, "Hey, you gotta come. I got one for Crystal and Brooke. This is awesome. All that good stuff." So
Yeah,
but
that's where it started for us.
Yeah, but man,
Typically, hunters, though, remember all of those things. I remember going to northern Minnesota gun store with my uncle and my dad's to buy a Remington 742.
Yeah.
I remember the smell,
Yep.
the feeling.
I
My
re-
first shotgun, I remember.
I remember the first time. So it's fall. We're here in Eau Claire, and we go find one of those, just those offshoot local dumps that people just turned into a dump,
Big
and,
Falls.
Yeah, and you would show up and you'd shoot.
Yep.
I remember my dad always saying, "Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot." And I was shooting his 30-30 lever action. And sure enough, I got it right about here. Boom! Scared the shit out of me, But luckily, I recovered from it.
Yep.
Was able to still be fine around guns. But you're right. Last thing you need is somebody to be scared, whether it's recoil or it goes off the wrong way, discharges the wrong way.
So why 308 versus the 270? Because 270 still has low recoil stuff, all that kind of stuff. So just your personal opinion,
preference.
why? Just personal
Yep.
preference.
In the 270s, again, a great caliber. Again, with the standard around Wisconsin, you can go into most gas stations, most Ace Hardwares.
Yep.
You can find 308, 270s, 30-06, 300 Winchester, and probably 243s. Always. Now, 6.5 Creedmoor because there's so many shells out there.
Yeah.
But
Where did the 6.5 come?
no, I have no
When did that
clue.
come? That's like 2018 or something.
It feels that gun came out of the blue and got tons of legs. Probably, I feel, because every other gun was gone. So some writer wrote something about a 6.5 Creedmoor, and everybody wanted it.
But shit, I'm on a couple of Facebook groups. They give 6.5 Creedmoor owners crap. Even Adam does.
It's kind of like owning a pellet grill. I just do every time. Luke, what's your favorite grill? What brand?
Well,
is your favorite grill?
I do enjoy my trigger.
But what's your favorite though?
My Holland.
Your
I will
Holland grill.
always go back to my Holland.
Okay, so now, and that's the thing with Wisconsin. You talk about anything Midwest, and outside, if you think about what are we going to use rifles for, outside of varmints, that's bear and whitetail.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's no other big game. I mean, I know we have our unique elk hunt in Wisconsin, but other than that, that's pretty much it. So when somebody comes in, now yes, you're going to ask, and that's what I get frustrated with talking with people, is because everybody starts to read forums and blogs and all that crap and Facebook groups, and everybody thinks they're an expert in calibers and cartridges and all this kind of crap. When it does boil down to it, you're talking fractions of inches you're talking millimeters at 200, 300 yards. Where guys like us, I don't shoot enough to be that good.
Yeah, 300.
I mean,
yards.
how did we sight in our guns when we were kids, Aaron? We'd take a milk jug out at 150 yards and put it out there, and Dad would give us 3 shells, and you hit it. Okay, we're good.
We're good. Pack up, head home.
But I mean, we had all of our. I mean, I wounded one deer. We didn't end up finding it, but other than that, all of my harvesting has been ethical and quick and clean.
And around Wisconsin and Minnesota, I would say the average shot, just because of the terrain, is 50 yards or less.
Yeah.
It has to be.
So again, back to being comfortable with a gun, it doesn't really matter what caliber it is if you know how to shoot it.
Yeah.
So ethical hunting, tab K, which is that firearm safety piece, if you do all of those things right, it really doesn't matter around here. Now, I would say I would not take a 243 to shoot an elk or a moose.
Yep.
So the most versatile firearm, if you were to come in and say to me, if I want to hunt anything in the world, anything from a small white-tailed deer up to a Kodiak bear on Kodiak Island, my go-to again would be a 300 Winchester Magnum.
Wasn't that your dream gun?
Yes. My caliber and gun, yeah.
Yeah.
So since then,
I can't say anything
My,
else because I guess it's rude.
no, but the collecting. So the greatest firearm, in my opinion, in the world is a Reuger number 1
Reuger number 1.
Reuger number
in
one.
a 300 Winchester Magnum.
Now, if you're listening, if you're watching, drop a comment and let us know what you think about that.
If I could,
It's all. I mean, I've seen
Yeah.
them, and it is awesome.
it is a single shot. Old. I mean, the couple that I have were made in the early 70s, in the 30 caliber type bullet. But I'd really love a first generation 308. But the go-to rifle for anything in the world, I would say, is a 300 Winchester.
Okay. So, again, choosing the right caliber. Let's dive into some other criteria that you should actually also think about, not just feel, fit, all that good stuff, but there's some other thing, like, for instance, cost. Cost of, and I'm not talking about cost of the actual rifle itself. Let's talk cost of ammunition.
And it ranges.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes
Talk a little bit
anything
about
from if you shot a Weatherby and you shot a 300 Weatherby round, you're pushing $100 a box. $20, it's a lot.
Now, you're also not going out to the range plinking,
So I
or
would say,
target
though,
practicing.
if you are going to have a firearm that you dial in to be the one firearm you use, you should know how it shoots.
Yeah.
So, like my firearms, you could shoot a Power Shock, Federal Power Shock ammo differently than a premium type Hornady shell. I personally won't pay the premium dollar because my gun shoots a Power Shock. The gun's going to shoot much better than I will ever be able to shoot. So I try not to break the bank with it. But yeah, you can spend a pretty penny on ammo.
But so would it be safe to say that when choosing your caliber, no matter what caliber, you should bank or budget $50 a box?
Yeah, I would say on the high end. If you found a 30-06 box of shells, you probably could get it for that $20 to $30 range. Now, nowadays, I always wait till there's a rebate or a sale. Again, back to the standard type calibers of a 270, 308, anything that you can get where you routinely go, because if you accidentally forget your shells or something happens, if you had an oddball caliber, which are cool, but
and those are tougher to find right now
Yes.
because, as we know, with the record sales, most of those are pretty common calibers, and the ammunition manufacturers stopped production on all the more rare calibers and cartridges, and flooded everything into your more common 30 calibers, the 223s, the 9 millimeters, all that kind of. They flooded all their production of that. So now That's what I've seen. I don't know if you guys have been out lately, but I walked through Shields here in Eau Claire, and there was a lot. There's plenty of the more common calibers to pick from now because they flooded it.
So now you're getting into selection.
Correct.
You know, you got cost, but now think of selection. So like you're talking about 308. 308 is the most common, and Federal makes, I think it was Federal makes 32 different varieties of 308s.
Yep.
So that's a common one. So you can say like, yeah, I'm going to do a 308 because I know cost and I know selection is right there with it. But then you can get into some calibers. What example of some calibers where you're like, be prepared. You don't have the amount of selection variety that's out there.
Yeah, back to like the Weatherby comment. If you had a 300 Weatherby caliber, that's a pretty specialty type firearm. So you're only going to be able to find that typically at a Cabela's or Shields or whatnot. You're not going to find it typically in a Ace Hardware in Prairie Farm, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So
does Prairie Farm have an Ace? There's no way Prairie Farm has an Ace Hardware, do they?
I don't know. I shot a 50 caliber one time at Prairie Farm.
Didn't you?
I did.
That's awesome. So when it comes to recoil, that's another. I mean, that's probably one thing, especially as the young kids. I know for a fact because we have 5 of them in our family. Between Aaron and I combined, when we go up. So one thing most kids are afraid of, and I would say yes, like you said, in the back of your mind as an adult, that's probably getting into it. Recoil is something to consider too. So. Talk about the things to consider with recoil. I know we talked about low recoil rounds, all that kind of stuff, so touch on that.
Yeah. So generally speaking, a semi-automatic type firearm will recoil less than a bolt action, just because of the way the action works with gas and whatnot. Yep. So if you wanted the least amount of recoil, a semi-auto would probably be a pretty good choice. But as far as things you can do, they make, which I have on my younger kids' firearms, recoil reduction pads that basically screw off of the stock of your firearm. So if you bought a Tikka, it comes with a standard butt pad. You can screw that off, screw on a recoil reduction pad, and that has a heavy influence on it as well. So I would encourage any new hunter or even old hunter, the older I get, it's not fun shooting Magnum rounds.
No.
So I have those on all my firearms too, just to reduce it a little bit so you don't get jumpy at all.
Yeah.
But you have to make it fun. So anything you can do to cut it and reduce it a little bit is key.
So they talk in this one article, they talk about you need to determine personally what you can tolerate when it comes to recoil. But generally speaking, shooters say recoil becomes uncomfortable past 15 foot-pounds. So I don't even know what that is, but if you can go to the recoil energy of most rifle calibers, you can check out. It's called Chuck Hawk's Recoil Table, and we'll link it in the show notes here.
Does that include the synthetic versus just a big ass oak stock? Mm-hmm. I mean, does the weight of the stock affect that too?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
It's so in this one, before you go, it has the rifle weight, the recoil energy, and the recoil velocity based on the cartridge, starting with a 17 HMR all the way down to a 600.
And it goes by the weight of the total. I mean, it obviously makes sense, and I just that's another thing to consider. They're heavy to, like there's my 7mm mag, just a big old wooden stock, and it's heavy, but there's not much recoil. I mean, there is, but it's not like, I swear my 243 youth model kicks harder than that 7mm.
So if you were going to go hunting for elk in the mountains, you're not going to want to carry a 12-pound rifle.
Yeah.
So we have a couple Tikka T3 lights, and they're tremendously light, but on the flip side of it, they kick like a mule.
You a little bit.
Yeah,
but
notice
when you're like Aaron, one of the funniest stories about Aaron is he's in the Washburn County Forest the first year we're hunting up there, and that was back when the Wisconsin DNR had a tracking thing. I don't know if they got in trouble for it or if they just because they did away with it like 1 year later. But you could share your code with other hunters, and then you could see where you were. And you tracked Aaron. I think by the end of the day, it was like 8 miles, and he was just all over. But you're going to want to be carrying something light if you're going to be somebody who's walking. But if you're somebody who's walking, a quarter mile and sitting in the stand all day, then something heavier might be a better option because they're easier to handle and keep steady too.
Yes.
A little heavier gun.
Yep. And you'll notice when those of you that have shot a big game animal or really any animal, when you go for the kill shot or when you're shooting an animal, you generally don't feel the recoil.
Yep.
You feel the recoil when you're sighting it in. So back to that, you need to be comfortable so you're not flinching when you go want to harvest an animal ethically.
Which is why I got a nice Savage 270 package deal for $399.
Yep.
And I love that thing, synthetic stock. I don't mind if it, gets banged around. So that's Recoil. And then the other one, the fourth criteria, the most common one is range and power, which it seems like a lot of people love to jump on that statistic. But at the end of the day, a white-tailed deer isn't going to know whether it got hit by a 243 or a 308. If you hit the deer in the vitals, chances are it's dead.
So I always go back to think about my 12-year-old son, first time that he could pull his bow back hard enough to be legally hunting with a bow, and the first night out there he shot a doe. So if his bow at 38 pounds could ethically kill a deer, it doesn't matter if it's a 243 or 300 Winchester as long as you make a good shot.
Yeah.
Now when I get out to Wyoming, and you're taking even then when we get out there, we don't feel like I'm not comfortable ethically taking a shot more than 250 yards. But there's so much more space, open space around that deer. I know some can get a little bit bent out of shape around that, but then you're getting into the you're getting into the ballistics of that of the bullet anyways. So
and that stuff is really fun to research, but for me, I can't remember all of it either.
Yeah. And that would be my. I don't know, and you're on here so we can ask you those questions, but I tell you, I think the one mistake a lot of people make is they get on the Facebook groups and the blogs and the forums, and they start to learn all about that, and then I don't like this caliber because it's it drops this or it raises this, and we're not good enough to notice the difference.
Correct.
We're shooting inside of 100 yards, inside of 50 yards, and we're shooting at something the size of probably a half-gallon milk jug.
Correct.
And if you can hit inside that, and you're going to be able to do that with a lot. I like your point of getting to know how your rifle shoots, no matter what you get. I know a lot of rifle ranges, a lot of gun shops will sight your rifle in for you, which is awesome because I think most people don't know enough about that, or they're going to go through 3 boxes before whereas you take it to a gunsmith like a Chris Gage. We'll name drop him. I know you think highly of him.
He's wonderful.
And he's done a lot of work on a lot of weapons for us as well. But you take it to somebody like him, and then 3 shots, he's got it zeroed in at 110 yards, and it's just spot on. But then still take that rifle out, shoot it a few times, and get to know that rifle and all of that kind of stuff. Because it is the range and power. Again, keep in mind if you're listening and watching, we're talking from our vantage point of Midwest, northern Wisconsin. It does the conversation probably changes if we're talking about an elk hunt in out west or something
mountain
like
goats or brown bear.
Yep. Or prairie dogs in Wyoming.
Prairie dogs in Wyoming.
So here's real quick. I shot a 17. We were at about 125 to 150. Breezy.
Yeah.
I noticed the 17 got pushed around a little bit. Aaron shot a 223. Prairie dogs, that's probably a little much for. I mean, it's if you're and we figured Aiden probably put 120 rounds through his gun.
Pretty much.
That's a lot of kicking with a 223. They out there, they said a 224.
Yeah.
Was it a 224?
224, I think.
Yeah. 224
If I-
and a 22 250.
22 250 is what I would go.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah.
I want to get that one.
All right. Luke just texted me that he has to pick up his son. He could have
Yeah.
just said that. He could have just said, I need to pick
I
up
didn't
my
know
son.
how professional we were.
Oh, no. Dude.
Dude, we got to wrap this up. I got to go.
All right.
Well, I could talk about this stuff all day. I love this.
Okay, real quick. Let's rattle this off really
Yep.
quick. I'm going to give you a caliber, and you quickly just one sentence advantage of said caliber.
Advantage of said caliber.
Okay? Ready? Here we go. 243.
Small.
Is that an advantage?
Yeah, I think 243 again is a great round for somebody entering a young hunter. I think it's it's a manageable round if you want to hunt deer.
Yep.
You could shoot a coyote with it if you wanted to.
And right now at Midway USA, there's 61 different varieties of 243
Yeah.
shells to
And you can
choose from.
find them anywhere.
This wasn't one sentence.
All right,
Yeah,
here we
sorry.
go.
It's going to be long.
30-30.
The 30-30 is an interesting caliber. It's getting less and less popular. So I guess personally, I'd have a hard time buying a 30-30 unless I wanted to go back to the heart of what like an original rifle from the
Yeah,
United
yeah.
States was.
They are fun. I shouldn't say fun. They're very, like when you're walking on a drive or just walking and stalking. Whoa.
They're awesome.
But again, that's
awesome.
a 30
They're
caliber bullet.
Yeah.
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 I will never forget the time. I hope she listens to this. I was hunting with my cousin Crystal. We come up over the ridge, and she was carrying Uncle George's 30-30. Deer starts running across the field, and she's got it down on her hip. Boom, boom. I mean, she was just firing away. I was just like, oh, shit. Okay, 6.5 Creedmoor.
I can't comment
Trigger.
on that caliber. Yeah.
Tell a girl.
Come on.
If you like to read forums, get a 6.5 Creedmoor.
Yes. There you go.
Oh, my God. All right, here we go. 7mm.
It's an-
7mm 08 Remington.
Small again for a very nice caliber for a youth hunter.
Okay, 308.
One of the greatest calibers out there.
No shit.
Tons of variety, easily accessible, larger bullet where you can shoot a bigger game if you wanted to hunt an elk or whatnot. 300. Greatest caliber, most universal caliber in the world.
30-06.
Again, right there as well. The Magnum bullet is the 300 Winchester Magnum gives you a little bit more oomph, but 30-06 again is probably the most widely used rifle out there.
Okay. So, one last question.
Yeah.
When you go in to pick out your next gun,
Yes.
are you a synthetic stock guy or are you a wood stock guy?
So I have always been a woodstock guy, but they're getting harder and harder to find. So my next rifle is going to be probably another Tikka, the T3X, which is a great, light, wonderful rifle.
Okay.
So
Is it just because everybody's now into synthetic stocks and not so into the wood grain?
I think walnut's getting harder and harder to find as well.
Yeah.
I sat in my deer stand with my 300 Winchester Reuger #1, and it got like snowed on and scratched, and I thought, I need a gun that I can beat up a little bit more. So a stainless steel Tikka, you can't hardly get a nicer firearm.
That's where you get the Savage. The cheap Savage 270.
Hey, it's as long as it shoots straight.
It shoots straight.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
All rifles now are so good. It's the shooter can't shoot the rifles as well as the rifle can shoot.
yeah, that's a good.
That's deep.
That is deep. Say that
Hey,
one more. Say that one more time.
I can't remember.
We
it.
should get a T-shirt made.
T-shirt.
Yeah.
Every episode that's a T-shirt. The shooter can't shoot it.
As well as the rifle
Rifle
can
can
shoot it.
It was something like that.
We'll look back on the film.
Yeah.
We're good. Well, hey everybody, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening. As usual, you can find us on all the typical socials that you would normally. Don't forget, we recently launched our website, noidea.tv, to stay up with our latest merch there as well. Aaron, what else we got?
Well, if you have any questions, if you are new to hunting, if you're looking for a gun for the upcoming gun deer season, you have a question that we didn't answer or we didn't talk about, drop it in the comments because we will get back to you. Luke will help us out to answer your questions. And but yeah, drop it in the comments. Down in the show notes, we'll link up everything we've talked about so that you can click there as well. But again, big, huge shout out to Luke for joining us because he's a busy man. As you know, he's got to go pick up his kiddo.
So busy.
He's so
It's
busy.
been a tough day.
I looked out my back window and you were just driving a yellow 4-wheeler around in circles in your backyard.
Okay, so I filled up. We had a flat tire, so I put Fill-A-Seal in it because I'm too cheap to buy a new tire. So I had to get it.
You had to mix it up.
I had to mix it up.
Mix it all of it. There, it was from everybody in the neighborhood was like, what the hell is he doing? And you were, at first I had to look, I thought it was Busch Light, but it was
Nope,
Dr. Pepper.
it was Dr. Pepper.
Gotcha.
So,
No,
all right. Well,
this was like a tree beer
a
episode.
tree beer episode.
Tree
There
White
you go.
Claw. So, well, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Luke.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Good talk.
You're supposed to say see you out there.
Oh, see you out there.
It'll catch on. Someday it'll catch on.